Well, welcome to my world. Here we are in the year 2014. Can you believe that? It's been a long haul, some 74 years. So over the next hour or so, I'd like to show you what my life has been like. Come on with me. Well, here I am at about 2 years old. My mother had this drawing made by somebody that came around and was drawing pictures of children in the neighborhood. Can you believe that? It's been a long time. Well, let's get into my life and see what the rest of it looks like. My mom is Beatrice Cushman, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was good to her children. She had 3 boys, Edgar, Bob, and John. She married Ivan Hans Westrom, whom I believe was from Sweden. And, well, I don't know much about him. He was my father. He left when I was about 2 years old. Here's my birth certificate. You can see Ivan Edgar Westrom. So I was adopted by James Cushman and Beatrice Cushman, and I became Edgar Cushman, Edgar being the name of the doctor that helped my mother deliver me. But it doesn't always last. Uh-oh. This is my brother Bob and I sitting on our tricycle, playing as we usually did, dressed in our Sunday finest. This is my grandmother and grandfather who lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but my grandfather built a cottage up on Chute Pond in northern Wisconsin, and he would be working in Milwaukee, and my grandmother would come up here and spend the summer. And I was fortunate enough to spend the summer with my grandmother when I was growing up, and I learned to love the woods and the outdoors. This is the original cabin, which burned down, and they later built another newer one. Here's Grandma standing at the kitchen sink in the original cabin. I'll always remember Harry Green. He was a neighbor that used to come and help my grandfather with his sawing of the firewood. He had the saw rig, which he'd hook up to the wheel of his Model A. Oh, I had a lot of snow back then in the in the 40s and the 50s. Here's Grandma and Grandpa on the lake, ice fishing. The lake would freeze over and people could drive on it. Here's Grandma sitting at the kitchen in the new cabin, which was quite modern compared to the old one. I can always hear Grandma saying, "Freddie!" And Grandpa would say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." About 1948, my parents built this house on the edge of North Milwaukee, and I attended 2nd grade at a nearby school. Wow, can you believe what this... Look at the trees, how big they are. Oh my gosh. We had a lot of fun playing in the snow. This is my brother Bob and I grew up getting into electronics with a crystal set. I'd string up antennas in the yard. This is how you would tune the thing with a little cat's whisker. Oh my gosh, that was long ago. In the mid-1950s, our family moved from Milwaukee to Green Bay, Wisconsin. A nice little town of about 60,000 back then, located right on the southern end of the body of Green Bay. I went to high school there at East High School and was a school photographer. So I had several pictures of myself taken as a school photographer. My interest in electronics continued, and I built this little room in the basement that used to be a coal bin in the bottom of our house where I played with electronics. During my senior year in high school, I was very fortunate to get a job at a local TV station, WFRV-TV, in the studio. And then I got the idea to put my binoculars in front of a TV camera and broadcast live for the very first time on television the eclipse of the moon. And I sent the pictures into Popular Science magazine and they published it. I got my very first car in 1958 during my senior year in high school. And oh my goodness, I put all kinds of crazy things in there. Here's a 45 RPM record player under the dash. And in the back on the floor, I had an ATR inverter, which made 120 volt electrical power. And I could do things like run a vacuum cleaner in my car. In 1962, I joined the Air Force because I was afraid they're going to draft me into the Army. And I ended up at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, shooting pictures and movies of missile liftoffs, launching them down into the Pacific. We also got to do a lot of practicing, shooting film, and here I am interviewing a guy on the street with an Oricon sound film camera. I also got to do missile countdowns for various launches for our people in our photography squadron. I got to shoot movies for practice using the Air Force film free. While in the Air Force, I got a 1963 Volkswagen convertible bright red, and boy, that was a great car. I loved it, but I rolled it over in a snowstorm in the mountains and decided to get a sports car. So I got this Sunbeam Alpine in 1965. After I got out of the Air Force in November of 1964, I went to work for the Bendix Radio Corporation down in the Pacific on this little atoll that you see here behind me. And then later I went to work for the Avco Everett Research Lab, working, doing the same thing, missile reentry research, but from an airplane this time, at about 18,000 feet. The atoll was about 12 miles wide, and everybody lived on this one island called Fred Island. Had a long runway in which we landed on. It was kind of frightening at night because you had to be sure you stopped before you got to the end of the runway or you'd be in the ocean. Well, they did atomic tests here in 1959 before we came here in about 1965, but we could still see the remains of the atomic blast. This is the hole that it created in the reef on the other side of the atoll. We flew in this Lockheed Super Constellation airplane at 18,000 feet, usually at night, and we had cameras up in what we call the greenhouse, that little hump on the top of the airplane. This is really fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants work. We flew at 18,000 feet at night. We opened up the huge cargo door at the rear of the plane, and the platform with cameras slid out to the opening. Flying at 18,000 feet with like a 200-mile-an-hour wind blowing in our faces, dressed in the best winter clothing we could have because it was like something 20 below zero, breathing oxygen because the air was so thin. Whew. People don't usually get to do this kind of thing, do they? Well, later they changed to a jet airplane, but I decided I had enough and I came back to Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is the type of barracks that the people, the guys, all guys lived on the island. Metal buildings. And here I am inside my own personal room. Had it all fixed up just like at home, very comfortable, which is pretty typical of me. I bought a brand new 1-inch Ampex videotape recorder, a VR7000 in Hawaii, and came back to the island with it. My friend Pony, sitting in the background there, also bought one, and so we had two of the machines on the island. At the same time, we also ordered custom-tailored Hong Kong suits by mail order. I hardly ever wore this one, but it was fun to have. Here's my friend Pony with the Ampex camera inside of a custom-made case that I built so we could put a viewfinder in there to see what the heck we were shooting. We hauled the camera and the recorder all over the place on the island and even shot some games, sports games, and put them on videotape just for the fun of it. I actually paid $3,150 for this videotape recorder. It was the very first one that Ampex put out for sort of home use, and it was really primitive and didn't work well, was troublesome, but I had the first one and it was fun. Well, the 1-inch machine was kind of troublesome and not very good, so I ended up getting this 1/2-inch Sony camera recorder combination that ran on batteries. And boy, I could take this thing anywhere and shoot video, and it was fun. I'm sitting in my room with all my electronic toys, reel-to-reel tape machines, audio mixer, even a Geiger counter and portable reel-to-reel tape recorder. I was the station manager while I was on the island of Armed Forces radio station WXLE. And that kept me pretty busy during my off times. I decided for some unknown reason to completely rewire the audio console. It looks like quite a mess, but I was able to put it back together and make it work. We used great big 16-inch records and 10-inch reel-to-reel tape machines. Well, we also had fun water skiing and scuba diving. Here we hauled our camera and recorder down to the beach, and I shot my friend Pony talking about killer clam shells that we got while snorkeling and hauled up to the surface. Here's Pony getting one of these big killer clam shells. They weighed a couple 100 pounds, and we carried them back to the United States because we had our own private airplane to fly in. The reefs down there were beautiful. We even had coconut crabs on the beaches. They're big and had powerful pinchers. My job was to locate the impact of the missile nose cones out in the middle of the lagoon. We'd locate it using triangulation and send a diving barge out there for them to recover the nose cones. They'd be sent back to the United States. Everybody that worked on the island had to have a secret clearance or more, and we had no idea what we were doing. It was all hush-hush secret government stuff. But later I learned that we were testing the nose cones that were to ultimately carry a nuclear warhead. This is my friend Marty. He also had a lot of fun working at the radio station on our off hours. Mike, oh, he was a character. He was a lot of fun. He also worked at the radio station with me. He was a character. I liked to act up quite a bit. Kept us all happy. This is the crew that I flew with for the Avco research lab on that Lockheed Super Constellation airplane at 18,000 feet. In order to get back to the United States by telephone, we had to use this Armed Forces ham radio station. We would call another ham back in the States, and he'd make a connection through a telephone line, and we could talk to our families. This is our only means of communications back home. I got my first motorcycle when I was in the Air Force in California in 1963. This is a Honda 50 trail bike. We used to go riding around the local mountains around the Air Force Base. Then when I traveled through Hawaii on the way down into the Pacific, we would rent motorcycles and ride around Hawaii. Then later I got this two-cylinder Honda trail bike. The only problem was it vibrated. So then I graduated to a four-cylinder bike. I got a Honda 500 4, and then later a 350 four-cylinder. This is my friend Paul, who lived just down the street from where I lived, and he had a Honda 750, and we used to go riding a lot. This is kind of the gang that all had motorcycles, and we would go riding around the local Green Bay area. And then this is my last, and my most favorite bike, Honda 354. Oh, it was a beauty. In 1969, I left the Pacific and came back to Wisconsin, and I was so happy to be back in the trees and the forest once again. I spent as much time as possible up at my grandmother and grandfather's place up at the lake in northern Wisconsin. I took a job with the University of Wisconsin in their TV studio, and I broadcast programs up to a remote campus from our studio in Green Bay. This is our family. My brother Bob on the left, my mom at the bottom, and Bob's wife Marilyn, my stepdad Jim, and my brother John. Here's Bob and Marilyn in their home in Coeur d'Alene and their youngest son, Bill. I remodeled the garage that we had at our home in De Pere into a room for myself, putting in a hardwood floor and a fireplace and even a brick wall. And this was my very own room. Then I moved to this little house in De Pere, and my friend Peter, who was an exchange student from Germany, came to visit me. This is the inside of the house. It was very small, but compact and complete. My friend Hinrich from Germany also came to visit me. This is when I met these two exchange students in Green Bay, and we were interested in technology and video and movie production. Hinrich introduced me to the first computer. This is Hinrich on the ski slope. We went skiing one time. It's probably the only time he ever went skiing. And I taught him to drive using my Fiero GT. I went to visit Hinrich himself in Germany numerous times. And here we are on the back porch of his grandmother. And his mom and dad and I became very good friends. My Fiero 1979. Boy, that was a good car. But it didn't last long, and I upgraded to the newest one. A newer model, and wow, it was good. This is probably the best car that I've ever had. It's parked outside in the street on Friendly Street in Eugene, Oregon. Sadly, I had to sell it because I moved to the farm in southern Oregon, and I had to buy a truck to be able to drive in and out on the back roads. Here's some of the people I knew back in Green Bay. This is the Campbell family, Bill and Rose, and their two children, Natalie and Tom. Bill and I used to work at the TV station back in Green Bay in WFRV-TV. This is Charlotte and Paul Schink. My mom first got to know them when she taught their children at a one-room schoolhouse up on the hill out of De Pere, Wisconsin. We've been friends ever since. Then going way back, this is my uncle Bill and Mulaney, who lived in Milwaukee, and they were friends of our family since I was a little kid. Does this clown look anything like me? Well, it is, believe it or not. It took about 2 hours for the makeup to be put on. Back in 1986, I think it was, we made a horror movie, and here's a scene from it. Paul, a resident of Green Bay who worked in Hollywood in film and makeup, did this makeup on me just for the fun of it. He also did my clown makeup. Peter and I and from my friend Hinrich all worked on the film together in various aspects of the big production just for the fun of it. Didn't make any money. Here's Peter when we took a trip down to visit my friend Pony in Nashville. He was a World War II memorabilia collector, and he dressed up Peter in this Nazi uniform that Pony had. Peter and I got together at the Brown County Library and made a music video out in front of the library with a lot of local kids doing dancing and acting in the parts. Peter and I were the stars of this video. Here's a portion of it.
The hip hop, the hip hip hop, you don't stop. Rock it out, baby, bubba to the boogity bang bang, the boogie to the boogity beat. Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello. To the black, to the white, the red, and the brown, and the purple, and yellow. But first, I gotta bang, bang, the boogie to the boogie. Say up, jump the boogie to the bang, bang, boogie. Let's rock. You don't stop, rock the rhythm that'll make your body rock. Well, so far you've heard my voice, but I brought two friends along. And next on the mic is my man Hank. Come on, Hank, sing that song.
Check it out. Well, I'm Imp the Dimp, the ladies pimp, the women fight for my delight. But I'm the grand master with the 3 MCs that shock the house for the young ladies. And when you come inside and to the front, you do the freak spank.
And he says a bump instead about the food, baby, but we're still friends. With a hip hop, the hippie to the hippie, the hip hip, the hoppy, you don't stop the rocker to the bang bang boogie. Say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat.
While living in De Pere, I got together with some guys that I went skiing with quite a bit, and we started our own band. We called it US 41. We played Chicago-type music, and I played the bass. About the same time I was in the band in De Pere, I decided to get a 1973 Gremlin by AMC. And then they came out with a Pacer. Oh my, I had to get one of those. Great big windows, roomy inside, really a nice car. Well, then the next car was a 1969 Opel GT. Boy, this was a sports car like a little Corvette. Really a neat little car. In 1973, I cut off my hand on a table saw in my garage in De Pere, Wisconsin. In 2002, I wrote this book about upper extremity amputations and my own experience. My good friend and neighbor Todd was the one who came over and drove me to the hospital. I was working at the Northeast Wisconsin Technical Institute at the time, running the video production department. We produced a video about this subject.
Is that it, Ed?
That's it, Frank.
Well, Ed, we've finished the program and we've worked hard together and learned a lot together.
Sure have.
Now, being somewhat handicapped yourself with that hook, what are some of your reactions to what we've done?
Well, I never considered myself handicapped, Frank. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we're faced with. So often we're considered handicapped in some way before others really get to know us. And my abilities with one hand are not necessarily the same as someone else or even impaired at all. I don't think we can really make blanket judgments about one's abilities based on a label like handicapped without considering the individual.
Yeah, that theme seemed to crop up quite often as we were putting together the program. I just wish we could have included more people with other disabilities in order to show their effectiveness as well.
The biggest problem we faced was deciding what disabilities to leave out.
About the same time, I bought a Nimslo 3D camera. It took still pictures on 35mm film with 4 lenses, and you mail the film in and got back prints like this. I'm rotating the print back and forth, but you can't quite see the depth of that hand sticking out. This is a picture of Ray, the orthopedist in Green Bay, operating the myoelectric arm that I got back then. I really didn't care for the arm. It wasn't very practical, but it was interesting. So the book I wrote about upper extremity amputations was only printed with 100 copies. And if you go to Amazon.com, you can see the last one that seems to be available is selling for $100. In 1973, I bought this farm not too far from Green Bay, and had a lot of fun. It was 30 acres. I remodeled the cabin, put in new doors, windows, carpeting, plumbing, electric, the whole thing. This 30-acre farm was just outside of Denmark, Wisconsin, a little bit southeast of Green Bay, Wisconsin. I was the first person to own it out of the original Kozlowski family that built it back in 1863. We had a lot of snow back then. Of course, we have a lot of snow today, too. The trailer you see in the background there was my Watts Unlimited mobile disco business, which I had back in Green Bay at the time. Well, that's my friend Tom's truck parked there in the driveway, which is under that huge mound of snow. Lester, my neighbor, would come over and plow it out for me. Here's Tom and my friend getting ready to cut some firewood, splitting it. I had my own wood splitter. Here we made hay. I had a hay baler that came with the farm, and we went out and baled hay just for the fun of it. This is an International H Farmall tractor that I reconditioned and painted and used on the farm. That's about all that's left of the pigs, just a big pile. And you see what happened? They didn't eat all of their corn. Let's see how it's doing. Doesn't look too hot. I guess it's a product of what it's growing in. Wonder who that could be. Ed speaking.
What are you doing?
What am I doing? Oh, I'm just standing here in the barnyard thinking about the pigs and standing right in the middle of it all.
Right in the middle of what?
You know.
You mean
Right in the barnyard.
shoveling stuff?
Yeah.
Oh,
Looking at the corn, it's amazing how well the corn has grown in it.
I remember seeing that. You gonna get the ears off of that?
There's quite a good ear. It's not doing too badly. I think the sheep are going to like it.
Oh yeah. So what else going on?
That's about it. It's a beautiful day.
No rain.
No, really gorgeous.
Find any other unusual goodies laying around anywhere?
No, nothing unusual.
Well, go back and get the shoveling.
Okay, we'll see you.
Salute.
Bye. This is our pet sheep. This is the sheep that Lester and the family raised from a little one in their barn. And he is so friendly, you can't keep away from him. Isn't that right, huh? This is my friend Tom in the middle, my brother John on the bottom, and me on top, getting ready to put a load of hay into the barn. I had sheep, chickens, and pigs to feed. We even made hay one time using this old hay loader, loaded loose hay into a wagon. Boy, that was a lot of work compared to bales. I even washed my clothes with my grandmother's wash machine. That was very primitive. Inside the house, I remodeled everything. I put beams in the ceiling, carpet on the floor, all new windows and doors. Oh my goodness, I even tore off the plaster on this one wall between the kitchen and the living room to expose the natural wood walls made out of logs. In 1973, I was working for the Northeast Wisconsin Technical Institute as a television producer. Here I am on the cover of Pacesetter magazine, showing me at the console and a recording that's going on in the studio. And we had some of the very newest equipment that was available at the time. We did our recording on a 3/4-inch Sony U-matic cassette recorder, and these were the best quality for the price going at that time. The recording was made on this small 3/4-inch cassette and could record up to 1 hour. All of our equipment was located in this roll-around console with a cassette machine on top and color monitors and audio equipment. And we had 2-tube Sony cameras that could be rolled anywhere in the building and record on location. My friend Dan, who lived in De Pere, was a high school student at the time, and he came to work repairing our equipment and went on to become the chief engineer of the TV station down in the South. Later, I went to work for the Brown County Library in Green Bay as a media specialist. We got a grant to buy equipment, and I started producing video programs to be run on the Green Bay cable system. Around Brown County and Children's Story Hour were some of the favorite programs. Here's some promotional videos that I made for the library.
Hi, I deliver about 400 newspapers a week, and that's a lot of reading material. At night, I come to the library for school assignments. More printed words everywhere. But you know, the library has more than just printed words. With an adult library card, my folks can check out video cassettes free, VHS and beta. Really, the Brown County Library has a lot more than just print material.
This is National Library Week. A word to the wise, library.
My series of cable TV programs for the library were nominated for a 1985 ACE Award for Cable Excellence. The library paid for my trip to Las Vegas to attend the award ceremony. It sure was exciting to be sitting there in the audience. But as one would expect, only the big universities with the big budgets came away with the awards, but it sure was an experience for me. I left Green Bay and the Brown County Library when they discontinued the media specialist position that I occupied for about the past 5 years. I moved to Hayden, Idaho, and joined my parents there. I fell in love with this beautiful country and the mountains and the scenery. There I got to know the Goins family who lived nearby in this home. Their son Randy and I became good friends as we both shared interests in electronics, music, and technology. Randy joined me in my Watson Unlimited mobile music business, playing for parties and school dances. We made a great team. In later years, as we both moved around, we kept in touch and often visited each other. Randy loved his cars and had quite a collection of them. We both ended up owning Pontiac Fieros. Randy loved his Jeeps and driving them up in the mountains. My friend Peter from Germany even drove out to Idaho with me one time to visit Randy, his brother Eddie, and his family. When my parents retired, they moved to this house on Friendly Street in Eugene, Oregon. They chose the house because it was big enough for all our stuff. That's my mom and my Aunt Jeanette. My dad passed away, and it was just my mom and I in this big house. Here Mom and I are at an antique shop. More stuff? Our family remodeled the inside of our house, as we always did. We brought this old wood stove out from Green Bay. I put up this brick wall as a setting for the stove. I remodeled the 2-car garage into my video production room. I got 2 quad videotape machines for free from a local TV station when they upgraded to newer technology. Each machine cost $75,000 when new. Now they had trouble even giving them away. This is the side of my room with all my video editing and recording equipment. Incredibly, today all of this can be accomplished with a laptop computer at a fraction of the cost. I got these big quad machines working just for fun. They had no real purpose other than their historical value.
And this is kind of a big event. We're going to make it work, and we're going to show you how good it works, hopefully. And the power switch. And color bars. Let's see, that means we're getting a signal from the switcher. Yeah, we are. Great. Let's thread it up and see what happens. What I have on here right now is a 1-hour reel. I guess they come in 1.5-hour reels of tape originally, but I don't have any. The most I've got is an hour reel. And it goes through the, around the, halfway around the video heads, the pinch roller. And onto the take-up reel. Turn it ahead a little bit. Get the head up to speed and push the play button. Now that's the fast forward dummy. Let's try play. By golly, look at that. There it is. Adjust the tracking control.
My mom and I took a trip to Hong Kong. Here's part of a video I made for the Discovery Channel.
Close to 6 million people live here in Hong Kong, mostly Chinese. It is one of the most densely populated areas of the world. Today we're going to take a closer look at how so many people live in such close proximity and do quite well.
We are constantly being tantalized by the smells of food being cooked and displayed right on the street corners. These little push carts are everywhere. One can get everything from octopus to fish balls. Nowhere on earth has street-side cuisine attained such heights.
We had a backyard barbecue and party for Mom's 75th birthday for all our friends and neighbors. Mom was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here she is telling us about the day when her parents brought her home.
I was born in 1920, and my older brother wanted a girl. And when my mother came home and she wanted to look at the baby, and what is it? And it says, a girl. But we wanted a boy.
Mom's health had been failing for quite a while, so I knew the end was near, but when she finally passed away, it was a very sad time. I gave my video production business, Pacific Video Services, to a friend and moved down to Southern Oregon. I bought this house on 20 acres in the Sprague River Valley. It was built by a man from scratch, and I replaced all the doors and windows, tore out some walls, put in new carpeting, and I even added this porch onto it in the front. It was a perfect place to sit and enjoy the view from the front yard. I did lots of repairs and updates and modernization. I put on some waterproofing on the cover of the wood box. And I built a cement pad at the back door entrance. This is the bedroom wing of the house. That little addition you see there behind the bell, well, that is the back end of my projection TV box. Cut a hole in the wall so that the TV could fit flush inside the living room. Well, it didn't have any inside toilet, so it had an outdoor house, and I remodeled it too, making it very modern inside. Even had electricity, telephone, and music playing. I put the stone wall up there behind the wood stove, and I had the wood stove working. I traditionally baked a turkey on Thanksgiving in it, and I even baked chocolate cakes and frosted them. I tore out the wall between the dining room and the living room so that it was open up to the rest of the house. And here is the interior of the living room. You can see the projection TV there in the wall. I had complete surround sound system with 2 subwoofers. Of course, I had a Christmas tree at Christmas time. The house originally did not have a kitchen, so I took this space, which was more or less an entranceway, and put in a sink and a stove and the microwave in the wall. It was very comfortable. This is my desk and my computer, back in the days when we had big tube monitors on computers. Looking just the opposite way toward the bedroom wing of the house, the room behind the stove there was my radio studio. Well, good morning out there. It's Ed here on the morning show. It's 6 minutes after 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, we've had some cloudy skies this morning, and I was beginning to wonder about the forecast. And, well, as time wears on, it's getting clearer and clearer. So let's get into some music here for a Sunday morning. This is the bedroom end of the house. It was the coldest room, so I put an electric heating pad on the bed that turned on automatically so I could get into a warm bed at night. Right next to the house was this little shop area. That was my electronics shop. The arrow at the top points to the transmitter for the radio station. And I had all kinds of satellite dishes to bring in programming to the radio station. People in Sprague River were going to satellite TV and got rid of their old big 8-10-foot satellite dishes. So I just went around town collecting them as they became available, and they were very useful to me. This was the latest and biggest one that I got with the help of 2 neighborhood friends. This is my friend Andre. He was a good friend, a computer expert, and he's sitting in my dining room eating ice cream. I found a skunk under my floor in the house, and Andre helped me take him out to the country. This is Ruth and Ellen Goodnight. They lived on the far eastern end of the valley, and they had a transmitter in their garage, which was a repeater for my radio station to cover that far end of the valley. Leo and Lucy, my good friends, living just a little bit up the road from me in the Sprague River Valley. And man's best friend is his dog, and this was Gracie, my dog. One winter I decided to clear the snow underneath my wash line. boy, that was quite a job. I learned a good lesson though, using a snowblower. Never blow snow into the wind. You're liable to become a snowman. The view out of my windows at my log house in Sprague River was really nice. Big front yard, long driveway, lots of blue sky. Here's Dorothy, good friend of mine that I got to know in Sprague River, and I helped her quite a bit on her little farm with her animals. She often dressed up for parades in her Native American Indian garb. And I became a member of the Sprague River Volunteer Fire Department. I made this webpage for them. Volunteer members often got together for training sessions. Here we're training for forest fire fighting. I went through the testing and the training to become a forest fire fighter. Here is my official certificate, my card that I could carry with me. I fought a few small fires in the area, but never really made too much use of it. So I decided to build an underground survival shelter for the end of the world that was due to be coming soon. So I had Leo dig a hole, and I planted these great big poles in the ground, these big trees, covered the top of it with corrugated aluminum, and then put dirt back over it. Here I'm putting the finishing touches on a chimney for the stove that I had inside. I decided then to put a porch up over the entranceway to keep the snow and rain out, and a roof over the porch. There in the back you can see the plastic covering the metal for the roof, and eventually it was done. Inside I built shelves to hold all kinds of canned goods and survival things. Well, here we are some 12 years later, and the world hasn't yet come to an end. So I decided to sell my house on 20 acres down in southern Oregon and become a campground host. I used about 10 cords of wood each winter, and I had my own wood splitter. I also was a reporter for the Weather Service with this weather station out in my front yard. Yes, the Sprague River Valley was a nice place to live. But for some unknown reason, I got the urge to move on to something better. After I decided to go traveling and sell the home in Sprague River, I started this website, Ed's Travels, and took pictures and put them up. I had satellite internet, so I could keep in touch anywhere I was. My good friend Leo down the road loaned me his trailer the first year or two. My first assignment was at Miller Lake in Central Oregon. Oh, the inside of the trailer was very comfortable. It had a stove and a refrigerator and even a gas wall heater, which really kept me warm with those cold mountain nights. I even had my own Forest Service truck. It was 12 miles down from the lake to the ranger station, and I used to haul garbage and trash and things back and forth with that almost every day. Miller Lake is a beautiful primitive lake located in a very primitive mountainous area. Here we get a good view of the lake from one of the nearby mountaintops. I had lots of time to spend in the forest, doing a lot of hiking and exploring and learning the area all around the park. I even collected sugar pine cones. They were really big pine cones. Sometimes my job as a host of this campground wasn't so pleasant. Just look at all the ashes in that fire pit that I had to clean out. Oh, Gracie was my constant companion. About this time, I discovered that I was what would be considered an asexual type person. That's one who's lacking interest in or desire for sex. Well, this explains why I never had any interest in girls as a teen and never got married. My first winter campground hosting experience was at the Grizzly Creek Redwood State Park in Northern California. This park dated back to the era of the Model T, so the spaces in the campground were fairly small for the small cars of that era. Look how close the trees are to the highway. Had to watch where you were driving. The campground office also was a store where people could come and get maps and brochures. Wow, just look how close my trailer was parked to a huge redwood tree. There wasn't much space between those big trees. Ranger Robert Leiterman was the ranger for the park, and he liked to get out and explore. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go along with him. We surveyed the boundary of the whole park. Wow, just look at the size of that stump. My friends from Sprague River, Tina and Mike, came down to visit me with their camping trailer. Not too often you get to stand inside of a tree. There's a lot of deer around, and I often saw deer right in the park. I was able to explore a lot of the redwood forests in Northern California, and it was a wonderful experience. Well, the next spring I moved up to Idaho. That first winter in Idaho, I stayed on the property of the Plunkett family, some people that I got to know, and that was the first time that I had experienced snow in my trailer in the winter. I had no electricity, and I had to charge my trailer batteries with a little Honda generator that I had. I didn't have any running water either. I got my water at the ranger station and carried it back to my trailer in big blue jugs and dumped it into the holding tank on my trailer. That winter I met Jared, a member of the family where I was staying, and we went skiing together up at Schweitzer, where I worked the first winter. I got to meet Jared's older brother, Jason. We became good friends too. I spent a lot of time hiking around the area where Jared's family lived. And I also got my very first widescreen TV in my trailer. I got this bicycle for $45 at Walmart, and it really got me out and about. When I left Grizzly Creek Redwood State Park in Northern California, I moved on up to Bonners Ferry and worked for the Bonners Ferry Ranger District at the Meadow Creek Campground. And here I met these people. This is a trail crew that was putting in a brand new trail all around Meadow Creek. It was so much fun, I just joined them and worked with them every day. One of the members of the trail crews was Jared, and we became good friends. As we became friends, we went out and did various things together, and we did go to Silverwood, the amusement park, not far north of Coeur d'Alene. Silverwood cameras even caught us riding in their roller coaster. Jared was quite a good skateboarder, and we often went to the skateboard park in Bonners Ferry. Several years after I started working with the Forest Service out of Bonners Ferry, I decided to make a video about northern Idaho, and I called it Northern Idaho Wilderness Beauty, the Bonners Ferry area. I used a lot of pictures that I had shot over the years working for the Forest Service and traveling in the Bonners Ferry area. These are some of the scenic pictures that I have in the video. had a birthday party with some of my friends, and they are on the left, Shinji and Laura, and on the right, me and my friend Paul. Shinji takes lots of pictures. He turns them into DVDs and gives them to his friends. Well, in 2007, I moved my trailer down to Sand Point and parked there, not far from Schweitzer. Here's an aerial view of Schweitzer Mountain Resort. First the front side and then the back side. It actually has trails going down both sides of the mountain. This is the Lakeview Lodge where I worked. I worked there for about 7 or 8 years. On the weekends it was really busy, and then of course during the week, well, it was pretty vacant. I had to climb these stairs every day when I went to work. As we enter the Lakeview Lodge, this is a view we get of the Lakeview Cafe where I worked. Here I am in my dishwashing room. Can you imagine standing here for 8 hours washing dishes? But actually, it wasn't bad. This is Adu. He was from South America, and he was my assistant one year. And boy, did we have fun. Once in a while, a dishwasher would break down, and here I caught the maintenance man about to climb inside the dishwasher. Of course, I get to lick the big bowls of chocolate brownie mix. Ooh. We also had to do the dishes for the banquets that were held in the building. Here's my friend Kurt and I about to do dishes. Oh, look at that stack of dishes. And pots and pans from all the kitchen work. Here's some of the people that I worked with. Working there for 7 or 8 years, lots of people over the years that became good friends. One of my favorite things was the chocolate chip cookies that they baked. One of the people that I got to meet is Chris. He worked as a cook in the kitchen, and we became good friends. Here's Chris with his wife on the right, and his sister on the left, and then his mom and dad, Daniel and Lorna. Chris went to Europe and sent me back this picture of apparently the world's smallest car. Well, on busy days, these little cubby holes were filled up. And then during the week, there was virtually nobody around. Every week or two, I'd go to the Chimney Rock restaurant for dinner. This is a high-class restaurant right across from the Lakeview Cafe where I worked. Even my friend Hindrich and I had dinner here one time when he came to visit me. Well, here's Ed all decked out, ready to go skiing. I could ski free because I was an employee of Schweitzer Mountain Resort. The views from the top of the mountain were incredible, if you could see it. The top of the mountain was often fogged in and you couldn't see 2 feet ahead of you. I remember one time I got off the top of the lift with another guy, and he got off and we stood there and he said, "Which way is down?" And I said, "I don't know." It was so foggy. So needless to say, I learned not to go skiing on cloudy, foggy days. Just down the hill from the Lakeview Lodge, there were a bunch of little cabins and condominiums for the people that came to go skiing. Night times around Christmas were beautiful times. And then every year they had a torchlight parade and fireworks, which drew big crowds. Here's Wendy and Dan, good friends that I met with the Primetimers ski group that got together every Thursday at Schweitzer. Well, the snow did get deep. It's my friend Jared standing on the sidewalk. He's standing on the flat. Look how high the snow is. And that's not just piled up from shoveling. That's the flat of the snow outside the lodge. Look Looking out the windows of the Lakeview Lodge where I worked, this was my view. Beautiful views of Lake Pend d'Oreille and the surrounding mountains. My favorite picture that I took at Schweitzer, I think, is this. A young man from Spokane, Washington came up snowboarding. This is not sunset, this is sunrise. Early in the winter when it's still dark when you get to work, you get to watch the beautiful sunrise over the lake. I think I lived a total of 4 years at the Blue Lake Resort, just south of Bonners Ferry. Inside my trailer, this is a recent picture, shows you what it looks like. I sleep in that lounge chair, that recliner chair there, and I have a great big 3D TV and surround sound with subwoofer. Keeps me entertained in the winter. Looking the other direction, you can see my kitchen on the right and my chair and the table. The table, well, I turned it into a workplace for all my computers. Blue Lake is blue when the sky is blue. Very pretty place to live, but it just got to be a little too expensive for my Social Security income. Good people that lived nearby me at Blue Lake, Pat and Zyla. Just across the lake from where we lived was this little shop. Pat did his woodworking inside the shop. He was really good at it. He actually built this rocker chair. Can you believe it? Well, here's my trailer in a temporary position as I'm about to leave for Priest Lake. About that time, too, I was quite involved with CIDO radio up in Creston, BC, Canada. This is the studio that we had, and in the back room we had all the electronic equipment for the transmitter. I even drove up to Creston one time for a home and garden show, and we had a booth there. I got to meet quite a few of the listeners to my morning radio program. I did a live radio program from the home show through the internet using my laptop. And then when I went up there and stayed, and then it was too far to go home, so I would stay at my friend Royal's house. Stay overnight, and then early the next morning at 6 o'clock, I would do the morning show and then drive back down to Idaho. I even did my morning show from the picnic table where I moved to at Priest Lake. Here's what it looks like in my trailer when I did the radio program. I actually played the music and spoke into the laptop in the foreground, and the two computers in the back showed me things like news and weather and a screen for operating a radio station up in Canada, all remote through the internet. It's incredible what you can do these days. So I left Blue Lake and moved to Coolin at the very southern end of Priest Lake. I had Bill install the internet dish for me, which received a signal from the top of Sundance Mountain. About a block down the road, I got to meet Ray. This is Ray's mobile computer repair business. Ray would come and park every Tuesday near where I lived in Coolin, and people could go there and have their computers repaired. Well, then I got to meet a couple of guys and decided to move over here. This is a boat storage area, and we rented the office area on the side of the big building, and I put my trailer in the back. I even installed this roof over my entranceway, which really helps in the winter, keeping the snow off from where I walk in and out of my trailer. This is John and Ray, two good fellows that I went into business with, so to speak, doing technology and media production kinds of work. Well, there it is. I guess I could say I've been quite busy. And as usual, some of my choices were good and some were bad. We just have to keep trying. But I am very happy to be living here in North Idaho. I think that was a good choice. And I feel very fortunate to be spending my last years in a good place with good people, and you can't do better than that. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my favorite shirt for this scene.